2014 referendum took place following a majority SNP win in the 2011 election. That's the precedent. That's what I'm determined to repeat. So this is not about me or the SNP or any politician. It's about the people of Scotland. And to the people of Scotland, I believe this can be a rallying declaration that Scotland is a nation, that we affirm that every nation has the right to choose her own future. We choose a future where Scotland decides her own government. We choose to build secure homes and strong communities where people and families can thrive. We choose to use our vast renewable wealth to lower bills and build prosperity. We choose to protect our National Health Service and public services for the generations to come. We choose to take our rightful place in Europe among the nations of the world. We choose to be a society where everyone has the chance to contribute and to belong. We resolve that Scotland's future must be guided by the will of the people who live here, to place choice, fairness and democracy at the heart of our national journey. This is our pledge, our right and our opportunity to write the next chapter in Scotland's story together. That's the right to decide, and that is our declaration today. Thank you very much. Thank you all. What we're going to do now is move to some broadcast questions, and then I'll speak to the print journalists after we finish the event. And I'll come first of all to Colin Mackay of Scottish Television. Colin.
The Prime Minister is in Scotland today. Have you or will you speak to him about your demands today? And looking at the paper, isn't it just cold tail rehead?
What the paper is, Colin, is an explanation of the long-standing arguments and points put forward by many voices in this debate, a lot of them Westminster politicians, who have accepted the fundamental right of the people of Scotland to decide their own future. That is at the heart of the paper. And just because the outcome, perhaps of a referendum, perhaps become one that those voices don't like, doesn't give those individuals the right to change their view, that it's for the people of Scotland to decide the future of this country. And will I be in touch with the Prime Minister? Yes, I will. James Cook, BBC.
Colin said when. Did you hear him? He just said when. I don't know if you heard him follow up there.
I don't respond to Colin Mackay's heckling questions.
Okay.
He knows the proper way to ask his questions.
Well, good morning.
I've never thought of you as a spokesman for Colin.
No, no.
That is a precedent you've set.
We're all in favour of collegiate behaviour. Good morning, First Minister. A couple of things, if you don't mind. First of all, I just wanted to explore this idea that you were talking about the voluntary union of nations. It's possible that after the next elections, that Plaid Cymru might be the largest party in Wales, Sinn Féin might be the largest party in Northern Ireland, a rising tide of English nationalism, arguably, and you would hope, obviously, the SNP being the largest party in Scotland. I just wonder if that seems that some people might look at that and think that could be a quite messy, even chaotic picture for the United Kingdom, and I wonder, in terms of the rest of the UK, whether that's helpful or not for you. And the second thing, if you don't mind, you talk about the utterly chilling language on asylum. I mean, first of all, are you including the Prime Minister in that? Is that how you characterise his behaviour? And secondly, do you not understand why this is happening though? I mean, I've been to some of these demonstrations and people are saying that they're fed up with the state of public services and that, at least in part, is your fault.
Okay, there's a lot in there, James, so let me take the time to work my way through those points, very important points that you've raised with me. On the first point about political developments in the United Kingdom, I acknowledge all of the factors that you're setting out there, that there is change and dynamic in the politics of other parts of the United Kingdom, and so I don't dispute that in any way. But I take the view that it's up to those parts of the United Kingdom to decide their own future, just as much as I believe it is essential that the people of Scotland are able to decide our future, and there should be no impediment, any voluntary union of nations, for Scotland to be able to exercise the choice to be governed differently from the current arrangements and, in my view, to become an independent country. But fundamentally, and this goes back to moments in my political lifetime, which are really very significant, where there has been unity of opinion amongst many political forces in Scotland that the people of Scotland were entitled to decide the way in which they were governed. So I remember the claim of right from the, as you know, I've been around a long time, I remember the claim of right from the Scottish Constitutional Convention, which was founded on the right of the people to decide. Canon Kenyon Wright, who spoke for the convention, said that, you know, people say, if the voice from London says no, we say we're the people, and we say yes. None of us forget these moments. I don't forget the moments where in the 1997 referendum the voice of the people decided, and I don't forget or ignore the 2014 referendum, where people opted for a choice that I didn't support, but I respect the fact that that was the outcome of the referendum. So fundamentally, there's a democratic argument at the heart of this, which I think informs and responds to the point that you make to me. Now, on your second point about the chilling language, yes, I do include the Prime Minister in that language. I'm appalled that the Prime Minister is basically toadying along behind Nigel Farage. I'm horrified the talk that there is in the United Kingdom about exiting from the European Convention on Human Rights, I think it's just dreadful. Our rights, human rights, are absolutely the foundation of our society. And then when I come on to the last point that you make about the anger that people feel in society, and I understand that, and as I said, I've been out and about around Scotland all summer, and talked to lots of people, hearing lots of things, and of course I hear frustration about public services, and I'm doing my level best within the powers available to me and the resources available to me to do something about that. And things are getting better in Scotland as a consequence of the direction I'm giving to government and the leadership that I'm taking forward. But there are some hard underlying realities. If we've had, as we have had, more than a decade of austerity, which we didn't vote for, if we've had a Brexit, which we didn't vote for, which has made us all poorer, every single one of us have been made poorer by Brexit, if we've had the implications of the economic damage that's been done by austerity, isn't it a surprise? Isn't it a surprise that people are frustrated by the resources that are available? And also, living standards in the United Kingdom have been stagnant since the latter part of the first decade of this century. Now, I want us to have a fresh start with independence. I want us to have the powers to be able to use the wealth of Scotland to benefit the people of Scotland and to take a different course from the austerity agenda of the United Kingdom, from the agenda which is about lowering expectations of people's own expectations in society because standards of living haven't increased. And the reason why standards of living have not increased are unreservedly the responsibility of foolish decisions made at Westminster on austerity and on Brexit and all that flows from that. Lindsay Hughes from BBC.
Thank you, First Minister. A couple of things, if I may. The UK Government has just announced a big investment in the form of warships for Norway. Doesn't that demonstrate the economic benefit for Scotland from being part of the UK? I wonder, just on your comments on concerns around immigration there, will you speak to the Prime Minister directly about the approach being taken by the UK Government? And just thirdly, if I may, just to clarify on independence, if you are returned to power after the election next year, is the bar for you in terms of going and asking for a second independence referendum a majority of SNP MSPs in the Parliament?
Okay, first of all, on warships for Norway, That's the decision of the Norwegian government. An independent country has decided I was told throughout the referendum debate that there'd be no way there'd be any warship orders from any other country to come to the Clyde shipyards, and lo and behold, they've come. Why? Because they're good shipyards. So it just debunks totally and utterly some of the nonsense that we got during the independence referendum. And the other thing I'm going to say about this, yesterday the Prime Minister twice in the House of Commons said that I had not welcomed the Norwegian warship orders. Now, journalists were with me on Monday when I welcomed these orders. Now, there's a really basic point here that politicians should be accurate in what they say, and the Prime Minister was completely inaccurate in what he said in attacking me in the House of Commons yesterday. And if he wants a respectful relationship with the Scottish Government, he should go to the House of Commons and apologise for what he said yesterday. On the question of immigration, I've argued with the Prime Minister, my government has argued to the UK Government consistently for there to be a distinctive approach taken for migration into Scotland. Now, why is that the case? Well, it's the case because we have a real challenge about the size of our working age population. So when I talk about the challenges in the NHS or in social care, just to take one sector, that's because we are short of working age population in Scotland. This has been a long-term problem. 20 years ago, my predecessor, Jack McConnell, negotiated with the UK Government a Fresh Talent Initiative which allowed a different approach to migration to be taken in Scotland compared to the rest of the United Kingdom. And to Jack McConnell's credit, he advanced that argument, looking at the same demographics that I'm looking at now, and to his credit, Tony Blair agreed to that. So that demonstrates that these things are possible. When I raise these issues with the Prime Minister, when my ministers raise these with the Home Office, the door is shut. Now, this is doing economic damage to Scotland. It is holding us back. Our economy is currently growing, it's expanding, we've got very low unemployment, lower unemployment than the rest of the United Kingdom, economic inactivity is falling, but we're still short of people. So we need to have a different approach, and I will pursue that with the Prime Minister. And on your last point, Lindsay, the proposal I put to the party conference, which is what I believe is the necessary proposal to be taken forward, is that we have to rely on the precedent of 2011. In 2011, a majority of SNP MSPs were elected to the Scottish Parliament, and a referendum followed from that. Now, we've had the alternative in 2016 and 2021. There's been an independence majority, but it's not been SNP MSPs. And I think what we have to do to break the logjam is to repeat what we achieved in 2011 and make sure the UK Government has no answer to escaping from the precedent that was established in 2011, which delivered a referendum on Scotland's constitutional future. Can I just say to my friends and colleagues here, the applause is welcome, but it's slowing up my handling of these questions. And there is a certain thing called First Minister's questions at 12 o'clock that's going to have to be arrived at. So, Kieran Andrews from ITV Board. Kieran.
Thanks very much, First Minister. Last night we reported that patients in Dumfries and Galloway are still waiting up to 2 years for life-changing surgery. The Patient Safety Commissioner said this week that Scotland has a bed crisis, and your previous commitment that no one should wait more than a year for surgery than March next year is now called an aspiration by your Health Secretary. What would you say to people who might wonder why the Scottish Government has a renewed focus on independence when, despite improvements in some areas, as you say, there's still major problems facing the NHS and other public services?
Well, there are big issues facing the National Health Service. We're in a recovery from COVID, and if you pause a large amount of elective healthcare treatment for the best part of 2 years, it will take time to recover from that. And we are intensely focused on that. And as I've indicated, as the Health Secretary has talked about as well, we are now seeing the inpatient waiting lists falling, and we're seeing significant progress on those unacceptable long waits that you put to me, Kieran. And I totally accept that some people are waiting too long for treatment, but a large number of people are getting treatment, and many of them are getting treatment within the treatment time guarantee of 12 weeks. So the issue that we face as a country is that we will do everything we can within our devolved powers, and I think it's pretty obvious to people that since I became First Minister in May of 2024, that I have been giving my absolute all to strengthening public services and the economy in Scotland. I've got to broaden out the argument about some of the challenges that we face, and some of the challenges that we face are about the strictures of the financial arrangements that we're under, the continuation of the austerity agenda. We are not seeing an agenda which is about rebuilding coming out of the UK government, and that's why this issue, the issue of independence and the choice of the people of Scotland, is essential for us to have that wider debate about the future of the country. Can I come to Alan Jenkins from Channel 5? Alan? No? Right, okay. Craig Peter.
Thanks, First Minister. I'm just further to Lindsay's question. I'm just inquiring about the parameters that you're setting for an independence referendum. You've said that the precedent is set in 2011 as an SNP majority, but just to quote from the paper that was released last night, it depends on the people of Scotland returning a Scottish Parliament that supports the holding of a referendum. Technically, that precedent has already been met, and was met in 2021 with a pro-independence supporting Parliament. I'm just wanting some clarity here. I'm just wondering if you're setting a little bit of wiggle room for yourself after next year's election if you don't get that SNP majority.
Well, I think if I go back to my answer to Lindsay, in 2016 and 2021, the scenario that you just put to me, Craig, was met, and that was that there was a majority of independents supporting MSPs, and it didn't result in a referendum because that was ignored by the UK government. I'm simply looking at the reality and saying, well, at what time, at what moment did an independence referendum happen? It happened in 2014, after an election in which the SNP won a majority of seats in the Scottish Parliament on our own. And I'm advancing the argument, which I think has got a lot of substance because it relies on the principle of precedent, what happened before. In a given set of circumstances, in 2011, a majority of SNP MSPs were elected to the Scottish Parliament, and 3 years later there was a referendum agreed mutually between the UK government and the Scottish government. That, to me, is the precedent that has been established, and that's what I'm aiming to achieve with the proposal I'm putting to the party conference in October, and which will be the foundation of what I put to the people in the election in May. And the last broadcast question is Gina Davidson from Global. Gina.
Thanks, First Minister. On that proposal you're putting to conference, already we've heard from some SNP members saying that this paper is premature and it's disrespectful to them because that debate about the Constitution and your approach needs to take place on the conference floor, and they obviously plan to try and amend your motion. They don't believe that's the right way ahead. What is your message to them? And also, can I just ask, yesterday you made a statement about what's happening in Gaza and what your government is doing to support Gaza. You flew the Palestinian flag from government buildings. The Jewish Council of Scotland have said they are deeply concerned about that move and how it will impact the safety of Jewish people in Scotland. I believe they have written to you about that. They say despite meeting with you on Monday, they were very worried to hear your words yesterday. What do you have to say to them?
Well, let me take that issue first, Gina, because I went through a lot of this in Parliament yesterday, and I think it's important that I repeat it here today, and I'm glad that you've raised that with me. I want every community in Scotland to feel safe and supported and welcomed and valued. That's who I am. That's what I'm about. And I knew, the reason I met with the Jewish community on Monday is I knew they would be uncomfortable with a lot of what I was going to say in Parliament. But I have to do the right thing, and I have to operate within the law, which underpinned what I said to Parliament yesterday. Now, I will continue to engage in dialogue with the Jewish community. I will listen to their concerns about safety, and I will represent their concerns of safety to Police Scotland, and I know that Police Scotland support the community and work with the community very actively, and I have no complaints from the community about the work of Police Scotland, who are very attentive to all communities within Scotland. But there is a genocide going on in Gaza that I cannot ignore. I just cannot ignore it. And I have to reflect that in the priorities of my government. As I explained to Parliament, I am obliged to respect international law by the Ministerial Code. I do not want to be in breach of the Ministerial Code. And with the information available to me just now, I have to act on that basis. That's the basis of my statement to Parliament yesterday. But to the Jewish community in Scotland, I say that the community is welcomed, valued, will always command my attention and my interest, and I will do whatever is required to assure them of their safety. Now, on the debate about the independence proposal at party conference, the party conference is a democratic institution. Contrary to what often gets said, I don't control the party conference. You know, it's the agenda is decided by a conference committee, and that committee will be looking at all the different proposals. I'm glad they put the proposal from Keith Brown and I on the agenda for the party conference, and I'm quite sure the party will have an open debate. But what I simply say to my party is this, is to look at the frustration, and I feel the frustration that people feel from that we've had independence referendums supporting majorities in the Scottish Parliament in 2016 and in 2021, and it has not resulted in a referendum. But we got a referendum in 2014 because the SNP won an overall majority in the Scottish Parliament. And I simply say that, to me, is the reliable and dependable route to achieve a referendum on independence. And the reason why we need a referendum on independence is because we need to be confident that the route we take will result in Scotland becoming independent. And I don't say that glibly, because for Scotland to become independent, there has to be agreement about the process. There has to be recognition that we in Scotland have taken a legitimate decision, so that an independent Scotland can have domestic and international legitimacy. So not only do I want to win the case for an independence referendum, I want to win the case for independence, and I want to deliver independence. And that's why my resolution is so central to the agenda at the party conference, and is so central to the party's strategy. So, on that note, can I thank everyone for being here today. We are at the moment the start of an exciting journey where we want to engage not just people who believe in independence, but people in Scotland who believe that the people of Scotland are sovereign, that have the right to decide their own future, so that when we actually exercise that democratic right, every citizen in Scotland is free to make that choice. That's how it should be, and that's what our declaration today about Scotland's right to decide is all about, and will be central to the campaign that we take forward to next May. Thank you all very much.